there, Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video. Welcome to my review of the Star Wars The Vintage Collection, AT-ST and Chewbacca from Return of the Jedi. And of course it is following on the trend of the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, as we can see in the top left hand corner of the box there. On the channel I have already reviewed the Endor bunker and the speeder bike, both of which came out this year for the 40th anniversary of the Return of the Jedi. We have the Jabba's Goons to come on the channel in the next week or so. So this set is a bit iffy for some people because essentially it is a repack. We've had the AT-ST multiple times before. We've even had it in the actual vintage collection before, back in what, 2012 I think I want to say. I didn't actually get that one at that time, and this one is slightly different. The decor's slightly different. Apparently they've tightened up the joints of the legs, so anybody out there that was having issues with standing it, I'm hoping that it's going to be a bit easier to stand and that you can get it into some different poses and things like that. We will check that out, and we will compare it against another AT-ST that I do have in my collection, and we'll also be comparing the Chewbacca figure that you get included in the set with another version of the Return of the Jedi Chewbacca that I have in my collection. With all that being said, let's take a look at the box. I just want to say where I managed to pick this up from. I managed to pick this up from Return of the Nerd Star Wars. He has an Instagram channel. His name's Mark. He has an Instagram channel and he has a YouTube channel as well. I will link both of those in the description below. He's based out of Taiwan and he basically ships all over the world. So if you want to try and pick up things maybe early, then he's your guy. So here's the box. You can see there, first thing I noticed was plastic free packaging. So there's going to be no sort of plastic ties or anything here. It's all going to be in those like white bags that we're getting used to inside the box with lots of cardboard and things like that. But it's got to be said, it's a great image on the box, and we've got the classic Return of the Jedi chase or the racetrack design, whatever you want to call it, going around there. You've got the Kenner logo in the bottom there as well. You can see there is the set itself with the Chewbacca figure. You've got this sunburst sticker there with what, 5 different languages on there. Let's turn it around to see the side. Sorry about the light there. You can just see, you know, it's just showing you what it does basically. Back of the box is pretty much exactly the same as the front, except you've got the Vintage Collection logo on the bottom there. There's the import sticker, Disney and Hasbro at the bottom. And on this side, once again, I think they're the same images. So same all round. And if we look on the top, there's just a bit of a battle scene there with Chewie hanging out the top of the AT-ST with some stormtroopers lying on the ground. Looks pretty awesome. All right then, so let's open the box, see how it's all been packaged, build a vehicle, and then we can review it. And there we have it inside the box. That's how it's been packaged. All very nice. I would imagine that the main head of the vehicle is in there, the legs are in there, and then some other parts are in there, and probably the figures in there as well. Also, you do get the Kenner style instructions, as we always get with the Vintage Collection. I love these, they look great. And on the back it just tells you how to assemble the walker. Alright then, so there's all the pieces and the figure all out of their packaging now, all laid out. So I just need to build it. And I can already see by the sort of head here that there's a lot more sort of paint and weathering going on there. It looks pretty good. So let's put it all together and we can take a look. Alright then, so here it is all built and standing up, and I will come on to that in a second. But just first off, I wanted to talk about the way it looks, because I think they've done a really good job in updating this AT-ST. I think the paint apps are much improved from the 2012 version, which I don't have to hand to compare, but that one was nicknamed the Chocolate Pudding AT-ST Walker, or the Chocolate Pudding Feet, because the paint apps on the feet were just basically completely brown. It looked like it had basically trodden in chocolate pudding, basically. Whereas on this one, they've toned it down a lot. It's got more of like a flicker splash effect on those feet. Still quite a lot of mud, but nowhere near as much as the previous version. But it's what they've done for the rest of the vehicle that I really do like. There's lots of weathering all over it, as you would expect with the Vintage Collection. Particularly the head of the vehicle. We will go and take a look at that in a second. But let's talk about how it's standing. So I managed to get it standing. I'm not going to lie, it is awkward to get these things standing. The whole mechanics of the legs, it's just awkward. And they said that they've tightened up the joints to sort of, you know, help with that. I really couldn't tell the difference between this one and my ATS Raider, which I'm going to compare it to. So essentially, I could feel maybe that the joints were slightly tighter, but it didn't really help me in terms of trying to get it to stand in the position that I wanted to. I think you can only really get it to stand in 1 or 2 positions because the head is so heavy it will just outweigh the balance of the vehicle no matter what. Even if it's got sort of loose or tight joints, I really don't think that matters. I think if the head's too heavy, it's going to topple forward. So let's just bring in the ATS Raider so you can see how I've got them set up next to each other. So there you go, you can see them next to each other. They are exactly the same mould and everything, exactly the same sculpt, you know, all the parts are the same. Obviously with the Raider you had these nice soft goods and everything, and the paint apps are completely different. But I just wanted to show you that essentially it is exactly the same. So in terms of a comparison, it probably would be better to do a comparison versus the original Vintage Collection one, but unfortunately I'm sorry I don't have that one. Also, you'll see that there's some missing parts on this one because this is my son's. He's missing that front railing and he's missing the 2 side guns as well. He's got them somewhere, but he couldn't find them when I asked him to dig this out for the review. But there they are standing next to each other, pretty much in exactly the same pose. And as I say, this one hasn't got the tighter joints that this one apparently has, and I've got them standing in exactly the same position. But as I say, if you want to sort of move it out of that position, to have it sort of facing forward a little bit more or leaning forward a little bit more, you're going to have to manipulate the legs, that you might have to have one slightly further in front of the other and things like that, because otherwise it's just going to topple over. But to be honest, once I got it into that position, I kind of wanted to keep it there because it is very wobbly on the legs. Alright then, so let's get a closer look at the sort of head of the vehicle. You can see here the paint apps on the front. You've got the classic Scar, which is movie accurate to the one that Chewie drives, the one that he commandeers with the Ewoks. And you can also see some dirt effects that they've got on there, and you can also see just other little bits of grey weathering that they've done on the whole vehicle. We'll turn it on the side and you'll also see some of that weathering and mud and everything on the side of the head. So look, you can even see how it's wobbling there a little bit, and you can also see how the head is sort of leaning back. That's how I've had to have it to get it to sort of stand up. You guys out there might be a bit more of a pro in getting this thing to stand, but you know, I've got to admit, I had real trouble sort of with these ATSTs. A bit of weathering on the side gun there, and then on the back, I really loved that. That is some really good weathering, sort of like oil leakages out of the back of the vehicle there with these sort of engines and everything. You've got some wiring that's been painted. So I thought that was really nice. And again, on this side, once again, you've got some of the sort of mud and rust effect, as well as the general sort of dirt and grime, sort of like a grey paint, if you can see there. In terms of the features, this blaster at the front here, front cannon, that moves up and down like so. The side cannons rotate like so, and this one as well. Those do come out very, very easily. You have these little flaps here, or hoods if you like, which are almost like the eyes of the vehicle, and they open up there so you can see right inside. Top of the vehicle there, you can see some weathering even on these railings here. These railings are removable. They do come out. All 3 pieces do come out if they want. And there you've got the little lid there, if you like, which opens up. So obviously you can have Chewie sticking out the top of there, or the ATST driver if you have one of those. I'm sure you do. And you can see some more of the weathering around there and everything. I think that looks really good. I think the paint apps is the best thing about this most recent release of the ATST. And then if we open it up there, you can just see inside. If I can get some light in there. Let's try and get some light in there. There we go. You can see you've got 2 seats inside. You've got some stickers, some decals on the sides, on both sides. Some little gear sticks and knobs and things like that. Computer panels on that side. So a nice interior for the vehicle. Just looking at the feet there in a bit more detail, you can see the paint apps of the mud effect that they've got. It is one tone brown, so there's not like a mixture of different colours, but I think that'd be a bit too much to expect really. But the brown looks loads better than it did on the original release, and it goes right up to the sort of, I don't know, ankle joint or lower knee joint of the vehicle there. Alright, so that's the ATST Walker vehicle, and now we're going to check out the Chewbacca that came packed in. Alright then, so here is the Chewbacca figure that comes packed in with the ATST, and essentially there's not a lot to say about this figure because it is a very old sculpt of Chewbacca. We haven't had a new one in absolutely ages. But it is the Return of the Jedi version. You can tell that because he has the parting in his hair. And I'm just going to bring in the 3.75 inch Black Series version that came in the red and black boxes, just so you can get a comparison. Let's just see how they've updated the paint apps and things like that. Okay then, so there is the 3.75 inch Black Series version. He came in the red and black boxes, as I just mentioned. And you can see that they've sort of toned down the yellow on the new version. You can see on this guy, they had a lot of sort of that yellow paint going on the top of his feet there, and on his belly just behind the gun, and on his sort of hair coming down from his chin, and as I say, most prominently on that hand there. This guy doesn't have so much of that. It's more toned in with the colour of his fur. You can also see that the black that's used on the top part of his arm on both figures is also on his chest on the older version. But once again, you can see that that is the Return of the Jedi version of Chewie, open-mouthed, growling or whatever. They've got the part in the hair. If you check out the Chewbacca that came out in the vintage collection on the Star Wars card, then he has the slick back hair. And I think that version was also from the 3.75 inch Black Series on the TIE Fighter boxes. So we've had loads of Chewbaccas. Now, a lot of people sort of asked at the time, and I was one of them, why we didn't get this guy on the Return of the Jedi alternate image card back within the ATST. And I think the answer is that basically this is quite an old Chewbacca, and at the end of the day, if they'd put him on that card back inside that ATST, I think the carded collectors, you know, it wouldn't have been really fair on them basically to put a carded figure in a vehicle that's like, I don't know how much it was, like over $100 I think it was, or $99 wasn't it? And I think the last time they did that was with the Antok Merrick figure with the X-Wing, and, you know, I think they got a bit of backlash about that. So I think they tend to put the carded figures in like the $50 and less sets, like the play sets and the speed bikes and things like that, because then it's not such a stress on the wallet, you know, when you're having to shell out $100 or whatever just to get a carded figure, and then eBay is like loaded with like ATSTs basically. So I think they're just trying to avoid that. So it's a loose figure. Hopefully one day we will get that alternate image Chewbacca, you know, from Return of the Jedi. Awesome looking card back, one of my favourites. But when they do that, I would like them to update the figure. I mean, let's take a closer look at the figure and, you know, find out why it needs updating. Okay, so here is the figure close up. Nice paint apps, the eyes are there and everything, the teeth, nice paint on the tongue, all coming through. No overspill or anything. So, you know, it's a nice sculpt of Chewbacca. There's no getting away from it. It does look good. It's just very limited in the articulation and what it can do. You know, the head doesn't really move too much because of all that fur effect. I'm not really too sure how they're going to get around that, to be honest. He does have the ball hinged on the shoulders and on the elbow. The hands are a bit dodgy. They are just swivel, and they've got that sort of fur effect coming down on them as well. He has a swivel or a ball at the hip, but that is it. And then it's the legs that are the real problem. The legs are still, you know, that 5POA basically, you know, swivel thighs. They don't have a ball. So it would be nice to get a updated Chewbacca with those sort of new hips. He does have a hinge at the knee and he has a hinge at the ankle as well, but they're just, you know, they're swivel. They're not rocker ankles or anything like that. So this is a really old sculpt that they're using of Chewbacca, and, you know, essentially it just needs updating, doesn't it? And I think, you know, if they're gonna give us a new card back for him, that Return of the Jedi one, then I'd want it to be an updated Chewie, really. There he is. Another thing that they could do of updating is his bowcaster. It comes in two pieces for some reason. You have to sort of slot this bit in here. It's always been a bit fiddly. Let's see if I can get that in there. There you go. It's always been a bit fiddly. Obviously, they've put it in two parts because, you know, putting that in a bubble of any description is going to be pretty difficult. And I'd imagine that bit would break off quite a lot anyway. It is a soft plastic, but it's pretty similar to what we've had before, to be honest. There's not really a lot of difference, but no weathering to speak of whatsoever. It's just a black piece of plastic, but I guess it does represent Chewie's blaster quite well. As I say, that's always just been a bit of a problem, that being in two pieces. And there he is with the blaster in his hand. That's reasonably easy to get in there. Basically, you just have to make sure you get the stock in first and then push the rest of the handle into the rest of his hand. So he does grip that quite well. And then obviously you can have him down like that. Looking pretty cool. And finally we have Chewbacca sticking out the top hatch there. There is a peg for his peg holes to keep him secure. When he's standing up like that, they're in the center of the sort of 2 seats that are inside. So you can use those to secure him. And I think he looks pretty good there. But as I say, this thing would look loads better when it's with other things like the Endor bunker, the speeder bikes, lots of figures in a Endor diorama. And in fact, Mark from Return of the Nerd Star Wars, who I managed to pick this up from, on his YouTube channel, when he unboxes this video, he actually shows you some photos of when he took this outside into the woods and everything, and honestly it looks pretty cool. So that link to that video is in the description below. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like down below if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new. A big thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members for supporting the channel in that extra way that you do. I really do appreciate it. It really does help with the running of the channel and enables me to make more and better videos. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and we shall see you on the next one.